sure they yes, sir, got it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is to communicate it with them, no? And make sure that you don't just simply communicate it. You have to ensure that they understood it. Okay, so you don't just simply give memo. You don't just simply give, okay, these are the standards. No, you read it. No, no, communicate. Did you understand? Are there some questions, no, in the performance standards that you did not understand? No, are there some information that you need, no, to equip yourself also, no, so that you'll be able to meet those certain expectations. Okay, now you also provide areas of success, no, and needed development. This is where training and development will come in. Okay, so if ever you saw, no, you can see there that some of the information, or let's say some of the expectations, no, are not really being met by the employees. No? As a human resource manager, the next step that you should be giving is to provide training and development. Okay, so you provide training and development, and it's imperative that you document the performance, okay, for personnel records. Okay, so there are a lot of ways and means on how to document performance. Okay, if there are certain problems or conflicts, no, you can use reports, no, you can use checklists, no, whatever way the company decides on how to document performance. Okay, so this is just actually an overview, no, of how we look at performance management, no, so that it's very clear, okay, to the employees, to the workers, no, what are that certain things, no, expected from them. Okay, so you can see here, okay, there's certain components, the components of performance management. Okay, as we have mentioned a while ago, you have to always include, right, the corporate strategy. Okay, that's why in human resource management, they already call it strategic human resource management. So from there, okay, you identify the expectations. All right. So these are the things that you need to do as an employee. These are the things that you need to somehow perform in the organization. Now, later on, we'll be looking at the different aspects of performance management, like are you going to focus on the trait? Are you going to focus on job-related traits? Whatever. No? So we're going to look into that later. Then you provide, okay, performance direction. How are you going to do this? Because even if you give them performance expectations, if the employees does not know how to do it, it's going to be difficult. Right? It's going to be difficult. That's why I told you a while ago, it's imperative that we don't just communicate. You have to ensure that they understood it. Okay? They were able to process it. They were able to understand how to do it. Okay? So that's providing performance direction. And of course, you encourage them, okay, to participate. No? This is what is good. No? So the performance appraisal tool, no, should also be revised once in a while. Let's say, for instance, you own a school, okay, especially during this pandemic, right? Everybody went into online class. So most probably, a lot of the items, no, that has been used by schools in assessing the performance of a teacher might not be applicable during the pandemic, right? So they have to revise another tool, the use of learning management systems, no? What are the ways on how to also achieve the goals of ensuring that students are able to understand the lesson. Okay, so the use of all of these things, no? Technological advancements and all. Okay, so there will be some changes. No? You cannot just use a tool that is not appropriate for the situation at the moment. Okay, not only in schools, also in other companies. Okay, so a lot of employees had the remote work method or the work from home scheme. Okay, so that's another thing. Okay, that's another a totally new way of doing one's job. Okay, so you encourage them to participate of like, okay, so there are some changes in the environment. Okay, these are things beyond our control. We have to come up with a new performance management appraisal tool. Okay, so you also include those employees who have been there for so long. Okay, so what are their suggestions? What are the recommendations? And most probably encourage them to somehow give their insights in terms of like providing the direction. Okay, so this is very important. As a human resource management, talk to the employees. You don't just simply create policies without considering those people who are in that situation because they know better in a way that they're the ones performing that job. Okay, so get insights from them, right? And then you assess job performance. Okay, so that's already the act of measuring, okay, the performance of your employees. And then you conduct performance appraisal. Okay, and then it goes back again. It goes back again with identifying performance expectations. It can again change depending on the situation of the company, the situation of the corporation. Okay, so far at this point, do you have clarifications? Do you have questions? Is it clear? Are we clear on this? Yes. All right. So I assume everything is clear so far. Now let's proceed to the next slide. All right. So how do we identify, okay, and measure employee performance? There are a lot of things that you can actually look into. Okay. So you can look at the quantity of output, no? The number of inputs or information or services an employee gives to the company. Okay, you can also look at the quality of the output. No, maybe if you are in a factory, you can consider the quantity. No, how many products, all right, the employees were able to do in a day. Okay, but do not also forget the quality. Even if the employee made 100 product, no, if the product is not of good quality, then it's not also good. Okay, timeliness of output, no, were they able to reach a certain quota? Okay, so they use the word quota, wherein at a certain period of time you have to provide this kind of output, or kind of input in the company. Of course, no, companies consider the presence, no, the attendance on the job, okay, and then the efficiency of work completed, as well as the effectiveness of work completed. Okay, so these are some of the criteria, no, that you can look into, but later on, no, there will be some other information that you need for performance management. So here are the different types of performance information. Okay, as I mentioned a while ago, Gabriela and Jeremiah mentioned a while ago. Okay, trust. Okay, competent. Okay, these are actually examples of trait-based information. Okay, so you talk about character traits of the employee that may or may not be job related, right? Such as attitude, okay, initiative, the creativity of your employees, teamwork is very important, the values, right? So these are actually very important. Somehow they call this the soft skills. Okay. However, some people disagree with the use of the soft skills because these are not considered to be supposed to be. It shouldn't be considered as soft skills, but it's actually important skills. Okay, you know that in reality, yes, your grades can help you enter a company, but your attitude will make you stay longer in the company. No? Even if you are very, very intelligent, even if you are a student who graduated with the highest honor, if you have problems with attitude, you have problems with teamwork, you don't know how to work with other people well, there could be, a certain negative implications, no, to the company as well. So you try to also balance, no? Should I hire all the intelligent students who graduated with high honors? A lot of companies, no, will not only look into that trait. No, they will always consider attitude, okay, teamwork, values, no, how you conduct yourself in situations wherein you'll be faced with certain conflicts, you'll be faced with certain crises. Okay? So how are you going to manage all of these things? Okay? However, a potential problem with trait-based performance is the tendency to be too vague to be used when making performance-based decisions. All right. Like for instance, you need to promote an employee. Okay. Let's say employee A versus employee B. Okay. Employee A is kind-hearted, very, very nice, very, very respectful. But when it comes to the quality of output, let's say average to below average. Now here comes employee B, a little bit arrogant, snob. No? However, when it comes to the input or the output of the product, above average. So between the two, who are you going to promote? No? Which of the two employees are you going to give, certain reward? All right. So this is just one, no, of a potential problem that you'll be facing if you will be used a trait-based information. Is it the kindness, okay, that you will promote, or the one who is arrogant but gives above average performance? Okay. So something to think about. All right. Next would be the behavior-based information. So this one, you will now focus on specific behaviors that would lead to job success. Okay, so talk about customer satisfaction. Are your customers satisfied with the service of your employees? Okay, you also use verbal persuasion. Okay, or you can look at the quantity and quality of output. Okay, so behavioral information clearly specifies the behavior management wants to observe among employees. However, there's also another problem here, okay, that may arise. It can lead to successful performance and employees rely, okay, on these behaviors alone to complete, regardless, no, of possible negative consequences, or let's say certain problems that they will be facing, as long as I'm going to do this. That's somehow also a potential problem. Okay, results based. No? So here, you could also include sales volume, quality of the output. However, again, there's a potential problem here if you would only emphasize your performance appraisal with results-based information, then how the results were achieved may somehow be questioned later on. So care should be taken to balance the different types of information. So aside from trait, no, it's also good that you combine the three. No? So let me just go back. You may include results, behavior, or trait. So a lot of company actually combine the three. No? The trait, behavior-based, and results-based. So here are some examples. Okay, here is an example of certain performance standard. Okay, like when you talk about quantity, no? How much or how many must be done. Okay, so you process all requests in 24 hours, example, or quality, how accurate. Okay, timeliness, how fast Okay, there are certain deadline. Were you able to do it? Were you able to pass it on time? Okay, expenses. What are the cost constraints? The job responsibility must be done, and of course, other information, customer satisfaction, independent initiative of the employee. Some employees does not need to be told what else should be done. Okay, so very independent, very self-reliant. Okay, so that's actually a good characteristic. Okay, so very important that for performance standards, you have to again communicate, and this standard should be SMART-CU, realistic there, measurable, achievable, and clearly understood. Okay, so here's the process. It's a little bit not really complicated, but this is actually very easy to understand. All right. So we mentioned a while ago, determine the purpose. Okay. So you look into the corporate goals. Okay. Why do you have to assess the performance of your employees? Okay. Is there a need for you to appraise them? Okay. What is this for? Okay. So that's the purpose of the appraisal. Okay. Next would be consider environmental and cultural limitations. Okay. Next would be determine who will evaluate, followed by selecting the best performance appraisal method. No? And it's also very important that you train the raters, observe and document the performance, evaluate the performance, communicate the results, make decisions, and do not forget to monitor the legality and fairness of the process. Okay, so let me just explain the steps one by one. So first is to determine the purpose of the appraisal. Okay, so is this for training or feedback? Is this for salary increase? Is this for promotion? Is this for termination? No? Is this for research? Okay, so here are just some of the examples, okay, of the purpose of appraising the performance of your employees. There could be other ways also. There could be other reasons. No? There could be other intentions why you might want to somehow do performance appraisal. Okay, so that's one. Next would be to identify, okay, certain limitations. You don't just simply focus on what you need from the employees, but it's also important that you look at certain limitations like workload. No? Maybe the employee is already burdened by a lot of tasks that he or she could no longer be effective in what he or she does in the company. What about finances? You are expecting an employee to do this, to do that, to do all of these things, but those tasks needs financial resources and the employee does not have money. Will you be able to provide that for your employee? Okay? Employees relationship. Are they okay? Can they work also despite different backgrounds, different personalities, different nationality, different ethnicity, different languages? Okay? So these are the things that you need to also consider. There are a lot of information that you need to consider in assessing the performance of your employees. Okay? Now, who will evaluate? This is the question. Okay, so who will evaluate you? As an employee, traditionally, it's just only one person. Okay, just the supervisors. That's it. But that's the old way of assessing the performance of your employees. Now we have what we call the 360-degree feedback and the multiple source feedback. Do you think these two are the same? What do you think? 360-degree feedback and multiple source. Okay, so we're gonna answer that. No? So when you talk about 360-degree feedback, it's actually a kind of assessing the performance of an employee coming from all the people who's actually directly related to the employee. Okay, so let's say, for example, a security guard. Okay, so in order for you to assess the performance of a security guard, who are those people who are in direct contact with a security guard? That's a security guard in a restaurant, right? So of course, you have the boss, okay? You have the head security officer, all right? You also include the peers, okay? Other security guards who are in direct contact if they are in exchange of shifts, or let's say 2 or 3 other security guards. Peer evaluation, we call that the peer evaluation. The employees also, the employees will have to evaluate the security guard. The customers or the clients will also have to give a performance appraisal, okay, and other people, no, who will have a direct transaction, a direct communication with uh, the employee, the security guard, I should say. All right, so there, here are some examples: the boss, several peers, reporting staff, functional managers with whom the employee works regularly. All right, so that is a 360-degree feedback. Now, however, there's a question, there's a potential problem when 360 programs or degree assessment is done poorly. This can actually lead to mistrust, anger, and even conflict. No? In one study done by Forbes, there are some of the reasons, no, why the 360-degree program failed. Number one is that the boss doesn't get involved or discounts the program's importance. They just do it out of compliance. They don't really look into it. They have no interest in really looking at the results of these performance appraisals. The tool or the questions are too vague. They are not clear. Okay. People offer comments that are personal in nature rather than constructive. So certain biases can occur, certain criticisms that are unnecessary, no, can be given by other people in the company, no, which is not actually job related. No? So if your boss doesn't like you because perhaps maybe simply she doesn't like you. No, there are no reasons. She doesn't like you. That's it. No? So even if you do good, even if you're performing well, no, you'll be given a very poor rating. Okay, so biases, personal, so personal. Okay, no plan except following receiving the feedback. So okay, employee B, I am so sorry, but you are very low in item 2, 3, 5, 10, 20, and then that's it. Okay? They don't give suggestions. They don't give recommendations to the employees on how to help this employee perform better. Okay? So that's the problem. Okay? Aside from that, there's no follow-up. Okay? So there's no follow-up post. Okay? It happens only once. So you're just being assessed once a year, and then that's it. No follow-up, no feedback, just nothing. Okay? And then sometimes this is not good, lack of confidentiality. Okay, so they tell to other people, oh, you know, that colleague, that employee has very low, very poor rating in her performance evaluation. She's so lazy. Maybe she's not really doing well. Okay, so lack of confidentiality, and we forget the strengths. Okay, you forget the strengths that you are only focusing on the weaknesses. It's not good. All right. So when you look at the person, you highlight the strengths. Okay. Do not just focus on their weaknesses. Okay. Don't just focus. You focus on the highlights, you highlight the strengths of a person, and you help the person when it comes to his or her weaknesses. Okay, so you got that? Now, what about the multiple source feedback? Multiple source feedback is also the same with 360-degree feedback. Okay, the only difference is that if you only have like 1, 2, or 3, that's already multiple source. Okay, it does not necessarily have to be all people in direct contact with the employee. Okay, so that's the difference between multiple source and 360. Now, the problems, okay, presented a while ago can also happen in the multiple source feedback. Okay, it can also happen, So you don't just take performance appraisal for granted, because again, no, your most important resource is your human resources, your workers, your employees. Okay, so there. There's a suggestion here wherein this types of performance appraisal will be effective, meaning there will be a greater performance change when, number one, the feedback indicates that the employee needs to change the behavior. This means that the employee also knows and accepts that there are certain characteristics of him or her or behavior that he or she has to change. Okay? Give him or her a chance to prove herself, to prove himself. Okay? There's a timeline for that. Okay? And allow him or her to do better next time. Next would be the employee also understands that these changes are possible. Okay? These are possible. That's why it's very important that you help them. If you are a human resource manager, you help them. Okay? How will I make you do away with those behaviors that are not contributing to your effectiveness or efficiency as an employee? Okay, so the employee, all right. So if the employee can see that, all right, so I can change this part, I can do better. Let's say tardiness. No? If you simply say that employee is, you're always late, maybe you are lazy. No? That's not a good feedback. Okay, so you try to assess. No, you ask the employee, may I know the reason why are you always late? Why are you always tardy? No? So the employee will say, oh, because our house is so far away. It's like 15 kilometers from this company. So I am always late. So can the company also suggest or recommend? Maybe you could transfer, or if that is a family house, well, for to avoid being late, there's only one possible solution: wake up early, right? You wake up early. Okay, so if your class is 8 a.m., you're always late, okay, and your house is very far and you wake up 5 a.m. and you're still late, then most probably you wake up around 4 a.m., a little bit earlier. So that's a solution, okay? And also, even if you have good intentions, if the employee is not open to receiving feedback, it will not work well. So it's important that the employee should be open to receiving constructive feedback. So no attacking of a person personally. No? All personal information should not be used against the employee. Okay, so this should all be discussed during employee orientation. Okay, so you have to ensure that all newly hired employees should be open in receiving constructive feedbacks. Okay, so if they're not okay with that, they still have time to retract their application. Okay, so very important, you go back to employee orientation, discuss all of these things to the newly hired employee. Okay, So because it's going to be very, very difficult if you did not discuss all of these things, and later on you're gonna encounter them. No, they'll get angry. They will feel bad. No, they take it personally. Okay, so very important, no, that you discuss all of this. That you tell them that here's what we do. We assess your performance. I give feedback and do something about that feedback. So at least they already know, right, what to expect from you as a human resource manager. Okay, aside from that, no, sometimes in giving feedback to the employees, you give feedback not personally, but via a workshop, a seminar, a training and development program, wherein the feedback, no, will be given by someone who is not a part of the company. You invite a speaker, you discuss to them the results of the performance appraisal in general by not divulging employee information. So you can come up with like an overview, a summary. So you're able to see that, oh, in this department, in the department of English, let's say for instance, in the department of English, they're very low in terms of like this and like that. And okay, so the neutral person will have to think of a program, okay, a possible seminar, no, that would help this department, no, the people in that department to have a change of behavior, because that's also one way, no, of improving the performance of the employees. Okay, so far, are we good? Are you still with me? Can I see a thumbs up? A thumbs up. There you go. I can see some icons. Good, good, good. There, wow. Very good. I'm still waiting for the others. Yeah. Would you like to work as an organizational psychologist? As a human resource manager? It's good to work in companies. Most of us, psychology, we fall into clinical psychology. We go into teaching, okay? But we are also needed in companies. No? Psychology graduates are also needed in corporations because we understand behavior. No? This is our edge. This is our advantage. No? That we are able to see, different causes why people act this way, right? You know, um, I have a clinic here in the Philippines. No, I have clients who are also employees. No, and then they talk about their sentiments towards their boss, towards their supervisors, towards the company that they are working, and very few still in the Philippines. No, we still have very few psychologists per company, no, per organization. Unlike in Europe or in US, they have psychologists in their company. They have psychologists in their corporation. If they don't feel good at the moment, no, the workers can go there for counseling sessions. Okay, but here in the Philippines, we still lack, no, psychologists. No, in Indonesia, sir, how's the rate of psychologists in Indonesia? Somehow, do you have many psychologists?
Right. We have many psychologists. We mention it as bidang minat. So at our faculty, there will be 5 major of psychology: IO, clinical, education, social, and development.
What's the other one, sir? What's the last one?
Development psychology, developmental psychology.
Oh, right. Developmental psychology.
Developmental
Oh,
psychology.
5 major areas. That's good. In your practicum, you also have 5 areas when they go for internship?
Actually, they don't have a internship program from right
Right.
now, but for the first year, they study for the 5 major. So they already they can understand the basic of the 5 major actually.
Wow, that's great. No? We hope to visit Indonesia also, and you visit Philippines with your
Some.
students, right? With the students, you come here in St. Louis University, no? And then we go there in Widja Catholic University, right?
Someday, yeah.
Yes, someday when the world is healed from the
Yeah.
pandemic. Right. Yes. In St. Louis University, I also handle the internship for industrial and organizational psychology. So the students are actually exposed, no, to interviewing applicants, giving psychological tests. No? They also give training and development to some employees. So the supervisors, the HR in the different companies, no, will ask the students to create programs, no, come up with interview questions. Okay, so that's also a good exposure. No? So that's what's happening in the company. Okay, so thank you so much. Now let's go back there. This was already answered. Now we also have self-appraisal. It might be good, no? If you are a student, give a grade for yourself. What do you think, no? If you're the one who will give a grade for yourself, what will you give yourself for this semester? That is self-appraisal. Are you going to give yourself? How do you grade, Sir Antika? How do you? Is it numerical, 99,
Yes,
or
numerical and also the letter
the letters?
E to A.
A is the highest.
A is the highest and
All
E is the
right.
lowest.
E is the lowest. All right. So if I will ask Benedict, what grade are you going to give yourself? Benedict Raymond. What do
Yes,
you think?
in this class,
Right. In this class, what will be your grade if you will appraise yourself? You give a grade for yourself.
honestly, probably a B plus.
Oh, why? B plus. B
Yeah,
plus.
either B plus or an A minus, I think.
Wow. You think you perform somehow good enough in this class?
Yeah, decently enough, yes.
Wow, I like that. Very positive, right? Thank you, Benedict. What about,
Yes, thank you too.
right? What about Yashika? Yashika Caroline.
Yeah.
Yeah, what grade are you going to give yourself for this class?
Yes.
What grade? A, B, C? I like your name, Yashika.
A. Yes.
A. Wow. Okay, so it's the same with self-appraisal. No? So some companies, no, though very rare, no, that some companies would actually use self-appraisal, wherein it's the employee who will give a rating, no, for the self. Okay, so however, precautions, no, should be taken into consideration because this will be effective only when they are made with clear rating standards, no, and social comparison information, and there should also be agreement, no. For government employees here in the Philippines, they have the IPCR, the individual performance appraisal, no, wherein they give a performance rating for themselves in comparison to the organizational OPCR, the organizational performance rating standards also. When you use self-appraisal, no, it shouldn't be used for the reasons of promotions, because if this will be used for promotions, then definitely you're gonna give yourself a very very high rating, right? So self-appraisal is not recommended, no, for purposes of promotions, no, or other important decision making. All right. What else? Okay, so they should also believe that an objective record of their performance is available with which the supervisor can compare. This is what I was telling you about a while ago. Okay, here's your performance appraisal, and it should also be in accordance to other, no, performance appraisal. Okay, next is for you to select. Okay, so we are still in the process of coming up with performance management. So the fourth step is actually to choose, no? What method are you going to use in assessing the performance of your employees? Okay, so when you talk about criteria, we talk about the basis for describing employee success. So what are the decisions that you need to consider? What will be your focus, no? In terms of giving weights, no, to the different factors, no, and also the use of employee comparisons, objective measures, or even ratings. Okay. Now, when you talk about the focus, here are the different focus. Here are the different factors. Could it be trait focus? No, you look into attitude. Are you going to look into kindness, no? Trustworthiness, no? Or are you going to look into competencies? What are the expected competencies? Or are you going to look into the task focus? No? Or is it goal focused? Or is it contextual? All right, so these are the things that you can actually include in terms of trying to come up with certain dimensions. Now, what about the weight? No, like 10% for attitude, 30% for competency. No, so these are some examples. So many organizations choose to weigh all the dimensions equally because it is administratively easier to compute and easier to explain to the employees. Okay. Now, the use of employee comparisons, objective measure, or ratings, here are the different ways on how to understand performance appraisals. You can use employee comparisons. You can also have the rank order. You can have paired comparisons. You can have forced distribution. You can come up with objective measures or rating of performance. Employee comparisons, this is an example. For employee comparisons, sorry, no, I think this is already. For employee comparisons, all you have to do is to simply compare employee A from employee B, B to C, D to E. Okay, rank order, you just have to rank your employees from the most performing, effective, efficient employee to the least effective employee. So for paired comparisons, this is an example. There's actually a computation for that, wherein you compare each possible pair of employees and choosing which one is the better employee. Okay, but look at this one. If you have 10 employees to compare, how many comparisons are you going to have? No, look, no. So with 10 employees alone, you're gonna have 45 pairings. Okay, so the number of comparisons, you have the formula here, and would refer to the number of employees. So you see, it's a little bit somehow very heavy in terms of the burden of using paired comparisons, no? Especially if you have more than like 200 employees. Okay, so it's not advisable for big companies. You can only use this for small companies. This is the force distribution. This is also known as the rank and yank. Okay, force because you have to identify which category the employee will fall into. You will have to decide on that. So here's an example. Okay, let's say all of these people are my employees. So if I think of Paul or Wembley, let's say for instance here, Wembley, all right, Wembley belongs here, below average, 20%. Now here are the employees who are performing on a below average level. Wembley, Patrick, Kyle, Angelo, Lawrence. What about the above average? We have Aldwin, Farley, John, Ruan, Angelo. So these are just an example, okay, of a forced distribution. No, it means that you already have a predetermined percentage of employees placed into number of performance categories. Okay, here's the drawback. There's certain restriction of range because terrible employees are either never hired or quickly fired. And then of course, excellent employees are probably have been promoted. So if I go back to the table, the terrible 10%, Paul, Justin, Clint, Mir, for example, most probably these people should already be removed, no, from the company. And then the excellent ones, Mark, Mike, Levinson, Bretel, most probably these employees have been promoted already. So that's the drawback. Okay, so some companies use this, no, but it's not also advisable for big companies. Again, we talked about this a while ago. The quantity, the quality, the attendance. Safety is very important because if you have employees who are always involved in accidents, that's also company loss. No, because you have to bring the employee to the hospital. You have to ensure, especially if the accident happened in the company, okay, the company should pay for hospital bills, medications until the employee becomes fully healed. Okay, so safety in the company is very, very important to avoid also costs in the company. Okay, this is an example of ratings of performance. All right, so for example, no, graphic rating scale, rating employee performance on an interval or ratio scale. No, this is actually very common. Many companies use this. Okay, so you come up with just an example. Okay, if you let's say for example you have different researchers, for instance, in your company. Okay, these are some of the things that you can look at. Okay, or very simple behavioral checklist. No, you just simply write the list of behaviors, the expectations, no, or even the results. No, you just have to tick, no, whether the employees were able to achieve those checklists. Okay, this is also common for a lot of companies. And there are also possible contaminations, the condition in which criterion scores are affected by things other than those under the control of the employee. Again, I go back to certain biases, no, to certain possible errors. Okay, even if the employee is performing well, there could be possible contamination like favoritism, unfair practices in the company, unjust practices in the company. Okay, so you have to consider these potential areas. That is why, as a human resource manager, you have to be very, very objective. Okay, so that is how important criteria are. Having a list of expected and be objective in giving certain criteria. Even if you are assessing your best friend, you are assessing your wife, assessing your husband, it should be very, very objective. That is why, as much as possible, no, in a company, you avoid um, family members working on the same department, especially if the other one is of higher position. Okay, of course, expected favorable conditions, no, will be given to a family member who is also working in that company. Though even if you're not doing that, some of the other employees might be thinking that, oh, because she is a relative, she is a family member, she's giving high performance rating. No, some people will think that way. Okay? So to avoid, no, such possible problems, no, might as well be transferred, no, family member to another department. Okay. Now, 3 scales to measure behavior. Okay, comparisons with other employees, frequency, extent to which organizational expectations are met. Okay, this has already been discussed. Okay, and here are other used methods of assessing employee, no, but somehow not being considered by a lot of companies. The BARS, behavioral anchored rating scale, the forced choice rating scale, you have the mixed standard scale, and behavioral observation scale. Okay, so some of, based on meta-analysis, okay, here are some of the evaluation, no, of performance appraisal methods. The behavioral checklist, no, you remember the one I discussed a while ago, are slightly more psychometrically sound and have some advantages over the graphic rating scale, okay, based on studies. Feedback from behavior-based methods is easier to give and to use to provide suggestions for improvement. What else? The greater the employee perception of the fairness of the performance appraisal system, the greater was their job satisfaction and commitment. What do we mean by this? If I am an employee and I can sense that the performance appraisal tool is not actually fair and just, I will not believe in the scores. I will not believe in the results. Hence, I will not do good in the company because I know there are biases. Do I know there are certain contaminations? No? But if the employee believes that there is fairness, there is good intention in the performance appraisal system, I will do good. I will do better. I will give my best for the company. Okay, you see the effect, no? So very important again, as a human resource manager, communicate, no, the importance of performance management. They have to understand the different expectations and ensure them that everything is actually fair and just. Okay. Also, there was a stronger correlation between objective and subjective ratings of quantity than between object and subjective ratings of quality. Okay. However, 0.38, still very low. It didn't reach the 0.50, the average moderate relationship. But just to compare between quantity and quality, higher for quantity. All right. Next would be to train raters. No, although this is made a little bit an old study, they found that few organizations actually spend time and resources to train supervisors. They're just, just simply given to the company. No, and okay, you assess the employees without trying to understand really the importance of it, how to use this one, and how to also innovate, right, in terms of performance appraisal. Okay, so frame of reference training, they have to be aware of their rating errors, increase the validity of tests validated against the ratings, and to also increase employee satisfaction. But more than the employee satisfaction, it's important that you also increase employee engagement. No? When you talk about employee engagement, these are employees who really give their best to the company without expecting so much in return. Okay, so they just simply do their best now because they love the company, they want to become better in the company. So that's employee engagement. Okay. And then you also observe and document performance. No? So you look at the critical incidents, no? Self-reports or reports of other people, okay, in the company. Do you do documentation? Okay, so those are actually very, very important because sometimes you can use this for legalities. If the employee will file a case against a company, no? Having documentations of certain work performances can be submitted to the court, no, as evidence against the employee for possible legalities. Okay, then you evaluate. All right, so after that, you evaluate, you obtain and review the objective data. No? You also read critical incident logs, no? And then you complete the rating form. This is already the act of doing performance. Here are some possible rating errors. Okay, so if you are the boss, if you are the supervisor, no, you should also always be aware of the errors that you might be doing in evaluating your employees. So distribution errors, leniency, you give your employees perfect score, all of them perfect, that's leniency error. Are you sure they're all perfect? Are you sure? No, or you're just lazy because you just want to check. No, or the central tendency error. No, remember when you try to come up with a, how do you call this, no, a research, no, you avoid even number, odd numbers, because the middle is always chosen, no, by respondents. Okay, so central tendency, average, everything is average. But the other supervisors also create strictness error, everything is very low. No, all employees, they receive very, very poor rating. No, there's a possibility of having certain biases towards it. Halo, of course, no, positive. No, this employee looks beautiful, I will give her high rating. Oh, this employee is so handsome. Okay, halo errors. Proximity of or order errors. All right, so it has something to do with the order of items, no, in the rating error in the tool. Okay, so here's an example here. If the preceding item was a trait on which the individual was given a favorable rating, the rater may tend to let the favored carry over to the next item. So let's say, for example, number 2 talks about creativity. No? Number 3 talks about honesty. Creativity. I'm very creative. I'm very creative. I give, let's say, you give a high score. The employee is very, very creative. You give a high score, but there's a problem with honesty. But since you're able to give 5, oh, you don't want to give the next item a 1 point, very low score. No? So that could be an example of order error, proximity, because you gave a high score for the preceding item, then it's difficult for you to somehow give a low score on the next item. Okay, so be careful with that. Contrast error, a type of rating error in which the evaluation, okay, is affected by the level of performance of others. So if I gave a high average score for employee A, then here comes employee B. The tendency is that I give her a lower score, a contrast error. Or the other way around. I gave employee A a very low score, and then here comes employee B. The tendency is to give employee B a higher score. Okay, so contrast error. Sometimes it happens. This biases happens in among the supervisors, among the HR workers, and sometimes they are not aware of it. Low reliability across raters. If you use multiple source or 360-degree, some of the employees will give very high, some will give very low. So there's reliability, there's no consistency. Okay. And then also with sampling problems. Okay. So let's say, for instance, you do random checking of certain traits of an employee. What if during that time where you evaluated him or her, okay, he or she wasn't feeling well? No, that could also be a source of a sampling problem. And then you gave very poor rating. During that time, she wasn't okay. She's not feeling well. Okay. Also, cognitive processing of observed behaviors, the way you observe the behavior, again, the emotional states and the biases. So these are all errors or contaminations that can affect the result of the performance of the employee. Okay. Number 8 is actually to communicate. Again, I mentioned this a while ago. You give a feedback. Okay. And when you give a feedback, it should be specific. It should be behavioral. It shouldn't be something so personal. Avoid fundamental attribution error. Fundamental attribution error, you learned that in social psychology. If somehow the positive ones are being attributed to dispositional factors, and the negative ones are attributed to external or environmental factors. Okay, you can also do semi-annual evaluation, not only once. You can also do it twice in a year. The tell and a sell approach, meaning you look at the strengths of a person, you sell it, highlight it, consider it, appreciate it, okay? And then you also look into how the weaknesses of an employee, okay, be improved, in the company. Okay, and other techniques, you can do this prior or even during the interview. And you have to make certain decisions. Okay, so you either you raise it, you promote it, or can you just disregard the Article 282? We have in the Philippines, there are 2 ways on how we terminate employees. Okay, the just causes and the authorized causes. Okay, so these are some of the decisions that you can actually use. You can use where performance appraisal is being used. Okay, and the last one actually is to monitor legality and fairness of your appraisal process, especially if it involves promotion. Okay, some of the employees might be too assertive, especially if they know that they're good and they're not the ones who were promoted, and they know that they are qualified, and you promoted someone who is not qualified. Okay, be careful with that. All right, because it can actually lead to certain court cases, certain legal standards. So very important that your appraisal process is fair, free from biases, it is just. Okay, so how important is performance management? Okay, so how important is, there, as an organization, definitely, you want to track your employees' development, no? As talented employees are keys to your success. Without tracking, without feedback, without looking into the performance of your employees, how will you know if they're doing well? How would you know, no? If the company is actually doing well also. So this would help you know whether or not they need extra support, no? Can they handle a higher level training? Can you send them in another country and have another training, no? Do they deserve a raise, a promotion? Okay, so it is important indeed, no, to come up with structured performance management to track, no, the process, no, and of course to maintain, no, high standard for your organization. Also, let me just include this. Research shows that organizations who put their focus on continuous performance management have better business results. Okay, so in small scale businesses, they don't have that. That's why they always experience employee turnover. A lot of employees resign, and then you hire again, resign, then you hire again, because they don't have a very, very good performance management system. Okay, so there's merit to this argument. No? Organizations who dedicate time regularly to performance reviews and assessment are more likely to increase employee motivation, as they are encouraged to think about their goals more frequently. Because after all, employees' goals change more than only once per year, right? So also, when you have a performance management program, this will bring consistency and structure to your HR team. So if the process is determined in a clear and concise way, then employees, managers, and HR professionals within your organization will be aware of what to do and when to do it. Okay, so keep track of it, no? So that somehow it helps in the growth of the company and the growth of your employees. Okay, so I think this is it. Do you have any questions? I don't know if this is right, sir. Apakah Anda?
Yeah, that's correct, ma'am.
Is it correct? Wow.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank
Nice
you.
one.
Yeah. You have questions so far? Any clarifications?
Ma'am Lona, actually there are some students who DM me. They want to ask in Indonesia, but we have to translate it into English.
Sure, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, please who DM me, open your mic and ask in Indonesia, and we will translate you into English, please.
Okay, good morning, Ma'am Ilona.
Good morning.
My name is Maura. I have one question, but I'm sorry I'm not very good at English. Maybe Mr. Candy can help me to translate my questions.
No worries.
Ya, jadi kan tadi misalnya ada karyawan nih Pak, kalau sudah memberikan kinerja yang baik buat perusahaan, tapi di satu sisi perusahaan di sini itu nggak memberikan feedback yang secara konsisten atau nggak memberikan apresiasi juga gitu buat karyawannya. Apakah juga berpengaruh dalam kinerja karyawan selanjutnya? Nah, di satu sisi selain itu, apa yang kita bisa lakukan sebagai karyawan buat menghadapi situasi tersebut dalam mengembangkan kinerja? Kan juga kalau kita nggak dikasih feedback dan apresiasi kan juga memperlambat kita kan dalam bekerja. Seperti itu. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good questions ya, Ma'am Ilona. Maura asked that, sebentar, saya juga perlu waktu untuk translate. I have time to translate it, Ma'am Ilona, because my English is not so good also. Okay, so...
Oh, it's good, sir. Actually, your English is good.
Okay, Maura asked about when some employees have given good performance to their company, but in other hands, the company has not given a good appreciation. Will it affect to the next employee's performance? That's the first questions. And the second question is, if we want to stay to be a good employee performance, how we can deal with that situation? Okay, that's
Alright.
Okay.
Okay. So the first question, indeed, no, if you are performing well and you are not appreciated by the company, definitely this will have an effect on how you conduct yourself in the company. That is why, as a human resource manager, you also have to be very observant, no, among your employees, and try to appreciate not only the big achievement, even the small things, no, because it matters to employees, even just like, wow, you did great a while ago. The way you talk to the customer is, those are simple things, no, that could actually be very uplifting, be very motivating on the part of the employee. Okay, so for the next question, I don't know if the question of Maura of like what should be done as an employee or as an HR.
As an employee, as a
Oh,
employee, not as a HR.
If it's like you're performing well but you're not appreciated, what should you do? Is
Yeah.
that the question?
That's the question.
Find another company. Find another company. You're not being appreciated. Don't stay somewhere that you are not appreciated, right? It's like relationship. You're doing well, you're giving your love, and your love is not appreciated. Why should you stay in that relationship? Cut it off. Find another person who will appreciate your love. It's the same way as an employee. Find another company who can appreciate your worth as an employee, who can appreciate the value of the work that you give to the company. No? So do not allow yourself to suffer, no, even if more than the monetary thing that you get, more than the money that you are receiving from the company, the non monetary things are actually sometimes more important, no, even if you are receiving less, but you are being appreciated, you are being well taken care of by the company. They look after your well-being, they look after your mental health. You're gonna stay in that company, no, because of the psychological needs being given to you by your employer. Okay, so to answer the question, Maura, no, don't allow yourself to suffer if you're not appreciated, no, if you're not being respected. Oh, come on, leave, find another company. There are other companies out there. No?
Okay.
I hope I answered the question.
Gimana Maura?
Ya, Pak. Sedikit menangkap, tapi paham.
Okay.
Terima kasih.
Yeah. Thank you, Maura. She understand the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ada lagi? Cheryl, please.
Hello, I'm YLONA. Thank you for the opportunity you have given to us. My name is Cheryl, and so the question that I want to ask is, before Maura asks about the perspective of the employee, but I want to ask the perspective of we as human resource. So how do we as human resource deal with those people who are still so stubborn about the everything that we have given, that we have told to them, or the feedback that we have given to them for their own development performance, even if we are already told the consequence and the solution for their behavior and problem in their work, without hurting their feelings. That's all the question. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you, Cheryl, for the question. Yes, you will encounter stubborn employees. No? You already explained to them. You already told them that they have to change this, and yet they did not do anything about it. Okay, definitely it's important that a company should have policies for that, like give them a warning, one, two, third warning. If there are still no changes, suspension. Suspension one, another suspension. Of course, the last resort is termination. Okay, it will hurt. It will hurt, definitely. So the question of like, how are we going to do this without hurting them? It's not their fault. You gave all the opportunities for them to change, and yet they did not take it. It's upon them. No? So the company should also have a clear rules for that. No? Imagine if you don't have the problem, if you don't have a clear rules for that, you simply terminated the employee can also file a case against the company. Okay, but if you have very clear rules, like okay, you have two very low performance rating, the next step is that give oral, perhaps like an oral warning, verbal warning. Okay, after verbal warning, what could be the next? What could be the next? Until the very last solution is termination. I don't know in the legal system in Indonesia, but in the Philippines, ineffective performance appraisal can also be used to terminate employees. But again, this should be the last resort. This should be the last solution, because it's also very difficult to just simply remove an employee from the company, especially if the employee has a family to feed. No, has a family to feed, and you consider the age, for instance, like they're about to retire, but then they're not performing well. But then the company needs more effective employees, so you have to balance. No? So in terms of thinking of a possible solution, there should be a very clear policy in the company. And they have to sign that by the time that they become employees of the company, so that there should be no question. If they sign that, it's actually a contract. They know it. They understood that if I failed in my performance evaluation for the third time, for the fourth time, for the fifth time, this will happen to me. And they have to know that. They have to understand that. So sometimes, again, it's not just simply giving them papers to sign. It's also very good that you come up with certain orientation by trying to explain it to them orally. No? Because some people, you give the paper, they sign it without reading it. No? So that's what happens, no, usually in the company. They simply sign it. They're very lazy to read. Lot of paper. Okay, sign. They did not understand anything what has been written there. Okay, so aside from giving them the paper, come up with an hour or 2 hour orientation for newly hired employees. If there are some changes, you come up again with an employee meeting. All right, there are some changes. As teachers, if your students failed you will not be given load, or you will have a reduced load, number of subjects. Okay, so very clear. Okay, so the employee should understand. I hope I answered the question, Cheryl.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. You already answered my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jadi pertanyaannya Sheryl tadi, bagaimana kalau misalnya ada karyawan itu yang benar-benar keras kepala, udah diinfokan tapi tetap keras kepala seperti itu ya. Jalannya ya bisa ditegur melalui SP, surat peringatan, dan for the last itu termination. Termination itu PHK, teman-teman. Cuma di Filipina dan di Indonesia itu kita punya law yang sama kalau bagaimana mengatur termination itu ya. Jadi nggak boleh sembarangan. Sehingga saran dari Mem Lona tadi, pada saat orientation di masa awal di karyawan baru, kita kan kasih surat kontrak kerja. Nah, di surat kontrak kerja itu perlu dijelaskan juga do dan don't yang boleh dilakukan oleh si karyawan, termasuk peraturan-peraturan dan sanksi-sanksi yang ada. Nah, itu sudah kami jelaskan pada waktu materi di rekrutmen seleksi. Nanti teman-teman bisa cek lagi di materi itu. Itu ya. Oke. I just explained the answer for the student mem to make them clear. Oke. Silakan, yang lain, please. Monggo teman-teman.
Excuse me.
Okay, Alexander.
Hello. Is my voice clear? Can everyone see me?
Yeah.
Hello, Miss Veronica. May I ask? I'm sure there's some problematic people in your work experience, right? Now, I'm going to ask you this, Miss Veronica. what if there's a certain employee or a certain higher up who is doing their job, okay, as intended, there's no problem, but they are exploiting their power in a sense. How do we, in a sense, confront that, and how do we, solve that problem? Because in one sense, they're not doing anything wrong because they're doing their job as intended, but in other sense, they are exploiting their power, and of course, that can lead to some conflicts. How do we assess that, Ms. Veronica?
Thank you, Alexander. I like the voice. So deep.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Okay, good question, Alexander. Higher up. It means these are the people who are actually occupying high position in the company. Okay. Right? They're doing well. No problem with that. They're doing their job well. But there's exploitation. Okay. Again, you go back. What is the rule of the company? What is the code of ethics of the company? That is where the code of ethics will come in. Okay. So I don't just focus on how well you do your job, but what about the ethical behavior? And if the company stipulates that even if you're the best employee, but if you are involved in some unethical behaviors, that could be a ground for suspension, perhaps warning, suspension, termination. Okay. So the question is like, how do you assess? No, it depends. No, if it comes from a complaint, okay, the one who complains has the burden of proof. Okay, so if I say that, oh, my boss is using his power to like this, exploit, blah, 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 I should be the one who should present evidence. Okay, especially that we're talking of people who belongs in the higher echelon, in the managerial positions. And you know how difficult it is when you will be dealing with people who are already on top. They've been in the company for decades, many years. But if you stood your ground, you know that there is something unethical. You know that there's violation of human rights, then fight for it. That's how important the role of a human resource manager is. You don't cling to any side. You're a neutral ground between the higher ups and the lower levels. Okay. So the human resource office should have very strong convictions of following the code of ethics. Okay. I hope that makes sense, Alexander.
Yes, yes, thank you, Ms. Veronica. That makes perfect sense to me.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for answering, Miss.
Ya, untuk apa namanya pertanyaannya Alexander tadi, saya agak roaming sedikit teman-teman. Jadi saya tanya pertanyaannya Alexander. Jadi kalau misalnya karyawan dengan posisi tinggi, misalnya eksekutif kayak gitu ya, dia itu melakukan eksploitasi pekerjaan bawahannya, itu kan ya Alexander. Nah, gimana cara kita deal with it kayak gitu. Nah, terus dari Mem Lona bilangnya kita kembali lagi ke kode etik ya. Jadi di perusahaan itu, di organisasi tetap punya kode etik seperti apa pengaturannya. Nah, posisi HR di sini adalah posisi netral. Jadi dia tidak boleh membela karyawan, tetapi tidak boleh juga membela eksekutif terlalu terlalu besar. Nah, jadi bagaimana kita sebagai seorang HR itu harus bisa berdiri di tengah, menjembatani, bridging antara karyawan sama eksekutif, sehingga tercipta iklim kerja yang lebih kondusif. Gitu, teman-teman. Clear ya? Oke. Thank you, Mem Lona. Ada pertanyaan lain, teman-teman? Ma'am Lona. Oh, Monica. There is question from Monica. Please.
Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Thank you for the chance. Ma'am Yona, I have a question to ask. Is there any differences in doing performance appraisal between before and in pandemic era? Thank you.
All right. Monica, is there a need to come up to assess performance before, during, after? Is that what you mean?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, that's good. That's very good. No, ideally it should be. Okay, so it's like pre-test, no, and then post-test, however, and then during test. Okay. However, because of the the lack of manpower sometimes in the human resource offices, no, they only conduct either twice a year, no, or once a year for some companies, no, depends on the number of employees. Like if you have 200 employees, no, and you'll be doing like how do you call that? No, you'll be doing pre, during, and then post, then it's gonna be a lot of workload, and you give feedback individually, or depends, no, on how you're going to give. But that's actually a very good suggestion, no. For purposes of comparison, no, if you can actually see if there's an improvement in the performance of the employee, you can do that, Monica. No, that's good. That's a very good observation.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Yona.
You're welcome.
Sebentar, Monica tadi tanya apakah ada perbedaan antara performance appraisal sebelum dan sesudah pandemi gitu kan ya?
Ya, kayaknya salah tangkap ya, Pak ya. Ya.
Ma'am Lona, perhaps I will help Monica to clear her questions. Monica asked about, is there any difference between performance appraisal before pandemic situation on the company and after the pandemic?
Right. Sorry. Okay, I got it. Okay. Depends on the company, because depends on the nature of work. No, like for teachers, do you think there's a difference with their performance before the pandemic? Did they teach well before the pandemic? What happened during the pandemic? No, and well, definitely, we have seen an increase in the level of mental distress. A lot of teachers also had a hard time, using different modes, especially the older teachers. No, it was really indeed difficult at first. No, and again, when we go back for face-to-face, another adjustment. No, another adjustment. So every change would somehow have an effect on the way we perform. Okay, that's a given fact. No, that's a given fact. It's more of like knowing how to handle these changes, especially pandemic is a great change. It really affected a lot of lives, many lives in fact, no. And what we are going through, no, aside from our work with what's happening in the family, we are all inside the home, no, and we have to work and at the same time do the things at home. It has indeed an effect. No, it has an effect. And then again, when we go back, no, definitely, no, we'll be missing all of this. Like we're looking at each other, no, on small boxes and all, and then you go back again. It's like another adjustment, no, for everyone. Now, for those of a lot of people who are working in companies, most of them, I think, they already went back. And yes, no, during the pandemic, there was somehow a decline, no, of certain performances in a general scheme, no, because all of us were indeed affected by the pandemic. Is that okay, Monica?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Oke, tetap ini ya, apakah ada perbedaan atau tidak memang tergantung dari perusahaannya ya, dari organisasinya. Mereka ada standar-standar yang berubah atau enggak. Kalau kita bisa diasumsikan ya bisa aja ada gitu perubahannya. Kayak misalnya di kita mungkin di pendidikan, di dosen gitu kan awalnya nggak pakai Zoom, nah mungkin saja somehow someday kayak gitu ya kita akan menggunakan aspek kelancaran menggunakan media internet sebagai salah satu indikator penilaian kinerja dosen. Bisa saja kayak gitu, jadi bisa berubah, tergantung dari organisasinya masing-masing. Gitu, teman-teman. Oke. There's still others questions. Oh, Ma'am Lona, I just inform you that there in this class there is not only psychology student, there's also engineering student, because at IO we offer to the another faculty who want to learn about IO, they could join our class. So there will be 2 or 3 from engineering student, chemistry engineering
Oh,
student. Yeah.
wow. Okay.
And also Bu Agnes actually present at our class. Good morning, Bu Agnes, our dean.
Hi, Ma'am Agnes.
Morning.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
Ma'am Riona. Yeah,
Morning, ma'am.
yeah, I enjoy your lecture, so I just sneak around and then people just
Thank you,
listening
ma'am.
to your interesting topic. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So there is still any questions, guys? No. Okay. Perhaps I want to ask some questions about the topic before that we have discussed, Ma'am Lona. In 300 degrees performance appraisals, the subordinates will give appraisal to their leader or their peers, right? In some case, the subordinate not feel free to give appraisal to their leader, to their peers, a feeling of nahiya, right? Or huwag mak atubiling, right? In Tagalog. I just check on Google Translate about the word.
Oh.
What do you think about this phenomenon? Jadi sungkan, teman-teman. Kita kan kalau nilai karyawan kan harus nilai atasan kita ataupun rekan kerja. Nah, mungkin aja ada sungkan kayak gitu kan. Nah, how do you deal with this phenomenon, please?
Indeed, no? Indeed, sir. That's confidentiality is very important. So what you do in 360 degree, okay? You collect all evaluation, no? And you have to ensure that this information, like for instance, no, the president of the company, okay, will be evaluated by all the employees. No, you have to ensure you just give a general result, no, by not necessarily, you know, giving who gave you a rating of like this, who gave you a rating of like that, because that will cause inhibition coming from the employees. But if the employees know that their identity will not be revealed, okay, to the higher ups, okay, what will just be given to them are the general results coming from everybody, then they will be more comfortable giving a real assessment of their boss. Okay, so as human resource officer, again, you have to establish trust and ensure them of the confidentiality of the results of the evaluation. That is why you don't talk about it, though this will also depend. If I am the human resource officer and the president is my best friend, then definitely you do not expect the employees to be very, very real when it comes to their evaluation. So one thing also to do that is not to include the names of the employees. Okay, so for anonymity. Okay, you just give them the Google form. All right, let's or come up with a paper. Google form is the one that we use right now. We have to also go moving forward. Why would you go back to the use of papers if you can already use Google Forms? So give the Google Forms with all the rubrics there, no name, okay, just the ratings there. You can have real evaluation results.
Thank you very much for the answer, Ma'am YLONA. So we have to stick to the confidentiality, right? Okay. Jadi salah satu cara untuk menghindari sungkannya kita bisa pakai aspek kerahasiaan, teman-teman. Jadi ya kita mulai latihan untuk feel free menilai atasan kita dan juga temannya kita kayak gitu, karena ya tetap kembali lagi untuk kepentingan bersama, untuk pencapaian tujuan organisasi. Jadi mulai latih supaya kita nggak sungkan kalau kita mau memberikan penilaian ke rekan kerja ataupun ke atasannya kita. Okay, I think the time is very limited, Ma'am Lona. We just have 2 hours, around 2 hours. Please give an online applause, guys, to Ma'am Lona.
Thank you.
Perhaps Bu Desa would like to say something before we close the class.
Yes, Ma'am Ilona, I think thank you very much for your information. There's many things that we can learn from your information, and I hope our students can understand it and they can have another information about performance appraisal beside an Indonesian. So once more, thank you so much. And I'm really hope that we can come to Philippines to learn about IO, industrial and organizational, in directly. So maybe if there is situation is already good for us, so we can come to Philippines, or maybe Ma'am Ilona can come to Indonesia, so we can learn together. So thank you once more, and we can learn many more today. So guys, so we can once more give applause to Miss Ma'am Ira from the her information today. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, we just arrived at our final session. This topic is very useful and important to us as students who learn about IO, right? The explanation from Ma'am Lona is very, very good, very, very applicative. Thank you so much, Ma'am Ilona. Hopefully that your lesson today will be useful for our student ahead. And for you guys, for the conclusion, performance management, especially performance appraisal, will be a way to us to know our employee performance. Is their performance being effective? Is their performance being efficient in order to meet the organization goals or not? Just like you students, we also do PA to you, right? At the final examination and so on, to know your performance. Are you understand with the lesson we already delivered for you or not, right? So by knowing the performance level, the organization could make some program intervention, just like curative or prevention, to develop or increase performance later. Okay, then for the last, would you give some closing statement or message for us, Ma'am Lona, before we close our class?
Yeah. Thank you once again for this opportunity to be with you at this 2 hours. I hope I was able to somehow give new knowledge, no? But very important when you work, no, work with your heart, no? Give the best of who you are as an employee when you graduate. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Lona. And for the last, we closed with the closing prayer. I ask, please, Gabriela Angelica.
Pak Candy, before closing the session, I also would like to give my appreciations to our guest lecturer for today, Ma'am Leona. And for the sake of the Faculty of Psychology, I would like you to present actually a certificate for appreciation from us. I will send you an email as well, but just want to express our thankfulness because you've given us so many knowledge, and hopefully that our students and our collaboration in the future can grow, and then we can have many more lectures from both of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Maybe we can take a picture first ya, Bu Agnes ya.
Yeah.
Oke. Bu, boleh share screen mungkin yang tadi, Bu? Sekali.
Oh iya ya.
Oke, teman-teman, open cam, silakan. 1, 2, 3. Satu lagi, ada 2 slide. 1, 2, 3. Satu kali lagi, 1, 2, 3. Oke, terima kasih.
Terima kasih semua. Terima kasih antusiasmenya ya. Take care and God bless you.
Ya, Gabriel, silakan
Okay,
closing
thank you.
prayer.
Okay, I'm going to lead the closing prayer with Catholic. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, God, for this opportunity to learn from Ma'am YLONA. May all the things we receive today brings us to a brighter future ahead. And please bless us all for the next activities that we're going to do. Thank you, God. Please bless us forever. Thank you. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Oke, thank you Gabriela. Oke, thank you Miss Leona. See you again.
See you again,
See you
sir.
again.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.